Hi, today I'm going to show you how to make kombucha. Kombucha is a very popular drink that's been made for thousands of years, and I'm going to show you how to make it in your own home. A lot of people ask me how I make kombucha, and it's actually really easy, so I'm going to show you. By making it yourself at home, you can make it taste better because you can make it to your own liking, exactly how you want it. It's healthier if you make it the right way because you have more control over the process when you're making it. So I'm going to show you how to make it healthier. It's our kombucha upgrade after all. On top of all that, it's a lot cheaper. In the health food stores, you might pay $4 for a 20-ounce little bottle, whereas I'm going to show you how to make a gallon or even 2 gallons of kombucha for less than what you'd pay for one little bottle. So here we go. Okay, so here we have the beginning process of kombucha making. Now, what kombucha is basically fermented sweet tea. So all you're doing is make a big batch of sweet tea and then you're fermenting it. Now, this is the starting process. What we're doing right here is we are warming up some water. You know, that's all you're doing with tea. You warm up some water, you throw the tea in, you sweeten it, you've got sweet tea. Now, we're not just making regular kombucha because you can go online many different places and see how to make regular kombucha. This is the kombucha upgrade. We want to take everything to the next level. So one of the ways that we're going to do that is we're not going to cook the water too much. So we're going to just heat up the water between 160 to 170 degrees. The reason being is any more than that and it's going to throw the water off. And it's going to make our body have a white blood cell reaction. So if you're familiar with the raw food philosophy as shown in the Food Matters documentary, what they figured out was if you ate a meal that was more than half cooked, your body has a white blood cell reaction to it. So what that means is your body's freaking out thinking that what you ate is like a foreign invader. So it's alarming your immune system every time you eat. And if you're eating 3 times a day, you're giving your immune system a false alarm. It's not good and it can lead to things like we have a lot of the autoimmune things where your body's attacking itself. Well, you don't want your body to have to freak out every time you eat. So by eating a raw meal that hasn't been cooked, it doesn't give your body that reaction. So that's the foundation of the raw food movement. But what's less known is that the same principle applies to water. What they also found in the same research by Paul Kuchkoff almost 100 years ago is that, you know, just like if you eat a meal that's been cooked, you have that reaction. If you drink water that has been heated past a certain point, your body also has a white blood cell reaction. What's interesting is that it even does it if you heat the water past that point and then cool it down, like what we'll be doing with kombucha, it'll still give your body that white blood cell reaction. So one way to make your kombucha better and upgrade it is by not heating the water too much. So you see we have a TDS meter. This will measure the total dissolved solids. That's good for if you're testing water. Basically to me it's just a fancy water temperature gauge for the purpose of this because I'm just wanting to look at the temperature. So, you know, you just put it in here. You keep an eye on it. Once it's hot enough, then you shut it off. So it looks like our water is warm enough and ready to go. So the next thing we're going to add is the tea. Now we have yerba mate, which is really high in caffeine. It's a good, it's a good alternative to just normal tea. But here we also have just normal tea packets. Whatever you have works, but it's important to make sure that it has caffeine in it. Caffeine is an important part of kombucha. So it actually has to be literally from the tea plant, or in this case, the yerba mate also has caffeine, so that's kind of like an alternative. Now, as you can see, our water is up to temperature, so now it's time to add the tea. So just as in any tea, we're just gonna add. In this case, we're going to use all of these. I did it a bunch of times so I know, but if you're using a different amount, you just have to figure it out for yourself, basically. I mean, the key to it is making the sweet tea taste just like how you would drink it if you were just going to drink normal sweet tea. So we'll throw all these in here, give it a few minutes to brew, and then we'll come back. All right, so the tea has been sitting in the water for a few minutes, so it's time to go ahead and pull the tea bags out. I'm just going to put them into a glass because there'll be a little bit of tea that drains out of them, and then I'll dump that tea right back in with the rest of it. So there we go. So we've got some unsweetened tea right here. In a few minutes, I'm going to add some sugar. I'll stir it, dissolve it, and once it cools down, we'll add it to the kombucha. Okay, so our tea is done. It's still a little warm. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and grab me a little spoon. I'm going to add some sugar. So this is about the only reason why we buy regular sugar. You know, a lot of people frown on sugar, but it's nice for kombucha. You know, that's the food for the probiotics, is the sugar. So just to give you a little background on what's going on, is we're making a sweet tea with the tea and the sugar. And then once we mix it in with the rest of the kombucha, we're going to start the fermentation process. And what fermentation is, just like beer or any other fermented beverage for that matter, well, beer is probably the most popular. What you're doing is you're feeding bacteria the sugar, because the probiotics in the kombucha are going to eat the sugar. As they eat the sugar, the probiotics are going to multiply. So you're going to get a lot more probiotics in there because they're using the sugar as food, and as a byproduct of the fermentation, as a byproduct of the probiotics eating the sugar, you create CO2. And you also can create alcohol. There is a little bit of alcohol in some kombucha. So like some kombuchas in the store, they'll actually ID you have to be 21. But it's really not much. I don't get any type of alcohol buzz off of it, but you can slightly get a little bit of alcohol. But you know, this is so healthy, it doesn't even matter. But you do get a little bit of CO2, which gives it the carbonation, which is really nice. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. But that's just a little bit of background. You might want to look up more information online about fermentation, but we're just going to keep it simple. Okay, so here I have another bag of sugar. I mean, a lot of people say that you don't have to have organic sugar, you know, but I don't know. Just for me, I'm like, well, I'm feeding the probiotics. I don't want to feed them a bunch of crap. So we still buy the organic sugar, but it is a lot more expensive. So if you're on a tight budget, I suppose regular sugar will do. And, you know, there's no magic number or whatever. Again, this is all to taste. I don't measure it. What I'll do is just make it and taste it, and if I need to add more sugar, I'll add more sugar. But this is totally to your taste, whatever your preference is. You just make the sweet tea taste as if you're going to drink it as it is. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just stirring in the sugar, and you just stir it in until it's dissolved. Simple as that. Now, from here, the important thing is to make sure that you give the tea time to cool down. You know, the probiotics are living, so if you pour this in with the kombucha base, the heat could kill the probiotics. You don't want that. So before we give it time to cool down, I'm going to show you one other thing that you can do to upgrade the kombucha, and that's by pouring this in here. Now, it doesn't have to actually be this specific thing, but this is good because it's liquid, and what happens is the fermentation process actually improves the quality of these minerals. So what it is these minerals they're harder for the body to assimilate. So what happens is as the bacteria break down these minerals, they make the minerals more bioavailable. You know, because it's not just you are what you eat. It's actually, more correctly put, you are what you assimilate. And if you look at a lot of the cheap products on the market, like cheap mineral supplements, they're going to be hard minerals. They're going to be hard to assimilate. You know, they're going to be not very bioavailable. And if you look at some of the higher end things, you're going to find that a lot of the minerals and supplements are made through a fermentation process, which is a much higher quality. So this is a cheap way of getting the minerals in here, and you're improving them, letting the millions and billions or trillions of bacteria work for you and improve the quality of what you're taking. Okay, so here we are. This is the last stage of making kombucha. It's a very important step though. Now as you see, we've got a 2-gallon container right here. This is about the only thing that you'll need to buy to make kombucha. I think we got it for like $10 or $15, so it's really not a huge investment. And you could get a 1 gallon. But what's important is that the lid, I don't have the lid right here, it actually broke. But anyway, what's important is that the lid doesn't completely seal, because the kombucha is living. You know, these are trillions of living organisms in here, and they need to breathe. So you want to get a lid that covers it but lets a little bit of air in, so the bugs can't get in but the air can. So this works for me for right now. We also have another lid that we put on top of this, but the air can get through here but the bugs cannot. So this is a 2-gallon thing, and this has been sitting here. We make pretty much 1 batch of kombucha every week or week and a half. So what you're going to do is you're going to make it sit in here for a week. This is going to ferment, and then you just pour the kombucha from here into another jar. So what we do is we keep these 1-gallon jars, and whenever this is done, we just go ahead and dump it in here. So let me go ahead and show you. And I've got a measuring cup, so then I'll just go like this. It's a little messy, so I pour it in the sink. And you'll find a little bit of, I don't know, just pieces of SCOBY. SCOBY is an acronym for this thing that's floating on the top. The reason why they call it SCOBY isn't important, but what it is basically a colony of probiotics. And you know, you actually want that. It looks kind of gross, but it's an important part of kombucha. And each time that you do it, there's going to be another layer of SCOBY on top. And you only want so much SCOBY. So what you'll do, I'm going to go ahead and stop this so I can talk, so that way the audio isn't all messed up. But obviously you just keep filling this up. We're going to come back to it in a second, but let me finish my thought. You want this, and it's going to have several layers. Each time you do it, it's going to add another layer. You don't want too much, so what you can do is you can take a SCOBY and you can give it to another person so they can use that to start their kombucha. So all you need to start kombucha is a little bit of kombucha and a SCOBY. So we're going to fill up this jar, which is going to leave us with a little bit of kombucha for the next batch. But you know, if you want to hook someone else up so they can start their kombucha, all they need is a jar like this. Then you could take a SCOBY, I don't know, a couple, 2 or 3 cups of kombucha, and you could put it in a jar, give it to them. Then they would put the SCOBY with the kombucha in this. They make some sweet tea, pour it in here. So let me go ahead and just fill this up, and I'll come right back at you. Okay, so now we have the jar almost full to the top. Now, most people just stop right there, and as long as there's still some sugar left, it'll be fine. But what you want is, you want to make sure there's some sugar left in here, so that way when you add the lid, what happens is, as it's fermenting, the CO2 is made, but it actually escapes from the kombucha. And that's important during this stage of the process, because there's going to be a lot of sugar eaten, a lot of fermentation. So if this is sealed off, it's going to create a lot of CO2, which is going to create a lot of pressure, which could cause an accident like the glass bursting or whatever. So the same process actually happens when you brew beer. You do your initial fermentation to create the beer, basically. And then when you bottle it, you put just a little bit of priming sugar in there. And what that does is it gives it a little bit of extra sugar. So after it's bottled and sealed off with the cap, you leave it out at room temperature and you let it ferment. And this time the CO2 can't escape. So what happens is it becomes trapped in the bottle, and then it makes it carbonated. So if you were to put this in the fridge right now, you know, once it's cool, it'll be nice and cold, it'll be fermented, it'll be healthy, probiotics, all that, but it won't be carbonated. So this next step is to make sure it's carbonated. So instead of just going from here and putting the lid on and letting it sit out at room temperature, I actually do one extra step. And this is for me personally. That's because if it's fermented too much, I don't like it. And if you don't like the way it tastes, it won't do you any good because you won't drink it. So you gotta do what you gotta do to get it down. Now, you know, this is how I handle it. You might add strawberries for flavor. You can add other kinds of fruit. There's all kinds of different recipes. This is just easy and it works for me, and I love the way that it tastes. So this is the way that I do it. We just get some apple juice, organic. I mean, it's pasteurized, it has to be, but you know, if you could juice some apples, it'd be even better, but it'd be a lot more expensive and time consuming. So what I do is I just add some apple juice and I pour it in here to the top to get it full. And I'll fill it all the way up. So now we've got it full. Close this off so it's sealed. Probably should have left a little bit more room in there, you know. But you want to fill it up almost full. Probably not as full as this, you know, leave a little bit of room at the top. But you want to fill it up because you don't want a bunch of oxygen in there, a bunch of air. And then I'll go ahead and clean it off because it was probably messy. A little sticky. And then so what I'm going to do is let this sit out on the counter for a couple more days, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. So if you notice here, what we have is a piece of organite that we made. And if you aren't familiar with it, just look it up online, organite. We keep it next to the kombucha because it's really good for just living beings. So you'll find a lot of people are doing experiments where they're putting organite in their gardens, and it's helping the plants, and they're reporting a lot of plant growth because of the organite. And you know, they're good for humans, and they're also good for bacteria. So because we have EMFs around here, we just keep a little bit of organite by the kombucha. Nice little tip for you. So to recap and give an overview, you make the tea. Once the tea cools down, you can dump it in here. It's going to sit in here with this on it for a week. A week later, you're going to start the process over again. You're going to make another batch. You're going to take this out, put it in here, sit it on the counter for a week, pour this in here. While this is sitting out for a week, this is brewing for a week. And then, once this is set out for a couple days or whatever, you put it in the fridge, it gets cold. Then it's going to be carbonated, it's going to be cold. And then you just keep doing that same cycle over and over, and you'll always have plenty of kombucha. We end up selling some to our friends, you know, it helps cover our costs. We end up getting to drink kombucha for free, and they get a much better deal than they were getting when they were buying it by the bottle at the health food store. Plus it's healthier. So, you know, it's a win-win for everybody. So this is a way where you can improve your health. You can take control of the process. You can make it however you want. You don't have to use apple juice. You can try different recipes, figure out what you like, make it the way that you like it. You may not like the stuff bought in the stores. You know, if you still want it to be sweeter, like let's say it ferments too much, you could just add some stevia to it. or even, you know, I mean, you don't want to add sugar because sugar is not good for you. Luckily, you know, the sugar that you add to this, it's used as foods. The probiotics are eating it, so you're not eating it. But if you do want to make it sweeter, you can always add more apple juice. You could add stevia. You could use different fruits, which will sweeten it and give it flavor. So the key is to figure out what works for you. This works for me. Try it out. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. If you have any ways that you could spice it up, make it healthier, make it taste better, whatever, leave a comment below. Remember to like the video, subscribe it, subscribe to our channel. We've got lots more videos of its kind, and we've also got another video of how to take regular kombucha, add some stuff to it, and make another variation. So check out that video as well after you made your kombucha, or check it out right now. Okay, so now that the sweet tea has cooled down, I'm going to go ahead and mix it in here with this. So we'll just go ahead and pour the sweet tea into the remaining kombucha. Remember, I left a little bit of kombucha at the bottom with the scobies, so that way when you mix the sweet tea in there with it, there's enough kombucha to start the fermentation process. Then we just cover this up and let it sit here for a week, and then we're going to do the same thing over again. We'll take this, put it in a new container, brew some more sweet tea, and then fill it back up.